One of the things that jumps out is that we've seen this gleeful reaction from supporters of the president, and I've heard people literally say the election is over. We've seen battleground polls showing the president is up in Ohio, in Virginia, neck and neck in Florida, also up in Colorado. But the reality is, if you remember 2008, that election was tight all the way through the middle of October until Senator McCain suspended his campaign when it came to the debt crisis. That's when then Senator Obama really began to pull away. And so I don't get people who are on the left who say this campaign is over. I think they're crazy because we don't know what the impact is going to be with these voter suppression laws. And also what happens when the Romney super PACs start dropping $200 million on ads.
The other reality is that we forget that the GOP will vote no matter what. You could put a rat and a roach as VP and presidential nominees with a GOP T-shirt on, and they would turn out.
Because they don't like President Obama.
And they turn out. I think the concern is there's two things. There was a huge bump, at least from an excitement level from the DNC.
From the convention.
And so, yes,
right.
And so there were a number of people that got excited. Secondly, we began to see these numbers that I don't think we expected this early that was showing the president ahead in some key battleground states. I was almost horrified by that because I know what that does for some of us in particular is it says President Obama got it. And on November 6th, if it rains, they like, oh, it's good. I don't need to go out. And so we cannot stop. We cannot rest. We cannot lay back on our laurels. We cannot think that he has it. I don't care if Romney blunders the next 49 days. We need to push and push and push because at the end of the day, we have to make... I want to see the president win by so many votes that it's absurd. And if that happens, then fantastic. But we have to make up for the potential ground that's going to be lost by voter disenfranchisement, by confusion, by laziness, and by miscommunication.
I want to make the point. I think voter suppression is something we often talk about, but there's something that happens through the leadership of various communities of faith, for example, where you have pastors who have said they're not going to vote in this election because they can't choose between a Mormon and a president that supports same-sex marriage. So what I am really concerned about are influential people who offer spiritual revelation to people who kind of speak as God's mouthpiece, as well as, the debate that you've been having on Twitter over Lupe Fiasco and rappers. And so people who have influence in the decisions that people make, leaving a sense of apathy in people because they say, why vote? I'm essentially choosing the less of two evils. And I think it's absolutely irresponsible for leaders who have their own platforms, who can reach out to millions of people, say, well, on that day, why don't you be silent?
Tatiana?
I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and it's something that I talk about with my family all the time. That in particular, but there's also...
It's like you want to say something, but you're trying I don't really want to go there.
Well, this is a conversation that is being had all over the place in our living rooms, and it's happening in my living room all the time too. But one reason that we can't kind of stop our pace and why we have to keep it moving forward is that there's a really large group of voters who don't really pay attention until the very end. So all this stuff that we think is so outlandish that is, oh my goodness, people's minds have to be made up now. Now they really know who Romney is. Now they really can see the difference. That's not even in their frame of reference. And so we can't let that window pass.
Roland, and to that point, there's also a segment of our population that the campaign's not going to. They're just not. For whatever reason, they're not going. I just became communication director for a new super PAC called Black Men Vote. And we're targeting 18 to 34-year-old black men in Ohio and Virginia, because we know at the end of the day, those two states in particular can have a huge impact on the overall electoral count. I know that there are places that the president's campaign is not going. And so I want to go with messages and individuals. I want to go to strip clubs. I want to go to bars. I want to go to transit areas. I want to go to housing complexes. I want to go to the places. You better not start. I want to go to the places that the campaign...
Registration card. Can I get a table dance? Registration card.
Absolutely. I want 2 Chainz to go into the strip club and say, if you baller enough to make it rain, you baller enough to vote. I don't care what it is. That's what I'm looking for, because to Tatiana's point, there's a whole generation of young people who care about stuff that's going on, but they're never engaged to be a part of the process, and we got to do that.
I do want to do one thing right here. You brought that story up, and I know we're almost out of time. Let me be real clear. The Associated Press ran a story that said that these black pastors are urging their congregations not to vote. That story is actually a lie. Okay, I have a piece on, it's on my website right now. In that story, there wasn't a single pastor quoted saying they were telling their congregation not to vote. And so I reached out to the AP and I said, wait a minute, how did you run this story? How did you put it out there? And you're intimating that's the case when it's not, because the headline said Christians are wavering in their vote. The last poll taken showed that black folks are going to vote about 94% for President Barack Obama. There are a lot of Christians in that 94%. So AP said, we stand by our story. I made it clear, Associated Press, your story was wrong. And people out there, you're tweeting that story, you're passing it around. Look, I checked it. The story's a flat out lie. So somebody need to go ahead and say it. And that's the whole point there.
So
real quick.
Just real quickly. Maryland, last election, dirty tricks were all over the place. They had people calling saying, we got it. Don't worry. Democratic households, black households, don't vote. It's the margin's over. You know, the vote is too big. Your vote is not going to make a difference.
I tell everybody, ignore all of that, because until the last vote is counted, you don't know what's going to happen.